Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling Beyond the Pulpit with the Good News Gang. My name is Pastor Matt West, and I serve at Marble Memorial, UMC in Milan. And I am gathered together with my tag team partners once again, Pastor Kim Metzer from Hope UMC in Hastings, Pastor Jackie Ranieri from Clare UMC, and the professor, Pastor Curtis Clark from Marysville UMC. I proclaim Pastor Curtis the professor because he's always dropping wisdom on us. So teaching me at least something new every time we get together.
Yep.
But I am so grateful for this opportunity together with my colleagues, and thankful for those of you who continue to watch and join us for this little thing that we do each week. But we are wrestling again with another topic. And this is kind of an interesting one. We are going to discuss the topic of family today. We're going to look at some fun questions, some meaning, and dig a little deeper into some verbiage that comes from Scripture. So I'm going to ask a little bit of an icebreaker question to get us started this week. But what fictional family would you most like to join?
Oh, I know right away.
I do too.
Oh, well, go ahead then.
Do you want to go, Jackie?
You go, Kim. Go ahead.
Well, so as many of our watchers, listeners know, I'm in a second marriage. So it's a blended family. So this family subject is very interesting to me because what does make a family? And as long as we've been married or together, I've always said that we're like the Brady Bunch without Greg and Alice. And I can really use Alice. So
I want an Alice.
Right? What did Carol do, really? I don't know. I like to be Carol for a week and just see.
6 kids wasn't enough, that she had to do more?
She had to do more.
But Alice did all the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning. What did Carol do? I don't know, but
it ain't easy looking that good, you know. She had to work at that,
and I can't do it. And I'm not crying today, like I told my congregation on Sunday. It's allergies. I didn't take a Benadryl today though, so Sunday I threatened to take a nap on the stage. But so I just, the Brady Bunch was groundbreaking, and you didn't really see step families or blended families in the media like that, all working together. And I just love how they were a family, despite being from biologically not related, all the kids. So, and we've tried to do that with our family, but I'd like to be the Brady Bunch, even though I've said we have been all these years. I don't know if I want a 6th kid, but I just
never know.
So there we go.
The Brady Bunch it is.
Brady Bunch. That's our bunch.
Pastor Jackie, you said you had one right away.
I did. The Partridge Family.
I knew it. I knew it.
Partridge Family all the way around. The musical family. I grew up in a musical family. I mean, I grew up playing 6 years old. I played the organ and learned the piano a little bit. My grandfather sang. He traveled all over Michigan singing. He created a little church kind of choir thing where, my cousin and I are the same age, my cousin Keith and I, and we were kind of the little cute token things in the front, that everybody like, oh, they're so cute kind of thing. And we didn't sing, we mouthed the words, but that was about it. But music, it was always been an important part of my life. It's always been, and it was like, and we always pretend we were on my other side of the family. We always pretend we were the Partridge Family. And I always got stuck being Tracy. So the big tambourine, playing the tambourine thing was always like the big family joke. But hey, I took it to heart. That was mine. I'm owning it. I'm probably the best tambourine player and all around, I guess. That's
me. Go on the road.
I did. I should take it on the road. So
we have tambourines at Hope. We can
I got one. I got my tambourine, my ukulele and tambourine. I'm ready to go. So that's me, Partridge Family. Just that fun musical. I just think that's fun, just to sit around and hang out with the family. And that was our Sunday afternoons. We get to finish with church and we go to my grandparents' house, and the neighbor would come over with the guitar, someone had the drums, and we just sit there and the piano was going and we'd sit and we sing for all day. Then we'd end up going back to church in the evening for a church thing and some kind of class or whatever with the church. But it was like everybody that was from the church was at their house. And then we all just got in cars, went to another building and hung out and sang some more and taught some more and that. So that's always been a big thing. Now, Matt, do you know who the Partridge Family is?
Yes, I do know who the Partridge Family is.
He's not that.
I'm not sure.
I figured maybe the attraction was, the traveling bus that they used to ride around on.
Yeah, that was a hot bus.
That was a hot bus. That was like,
and their clothes were pretty sweet too.
Your love for food trucks and what I figured
I
maybe the bus was what was the appealing part of the Partridge Family.
Yes, absolutely. There you go. So yes, all of the above. That's my attraction to the Partridge Family. It had nothing to do with David Cassidy, but it was about the bus and the music.
I thought you were more of a Danny Bonaducci kind of guy, but
yeah, he's probably more my age at that point. Probably Chris the drummer was, but that's okay.
Well, Pastor Curtis, do you have an answer to this question as well?
Well, initially my thought was The Simpsons, only because you could exist for all this time and never age.
That's true.
Bart has been 10 or 12 for 30 years now. So, but I think more realistically, I like the Waltons. It was a much simpler time. Things were, I love the idea of having that intergenerational or multi-generational family together. Two or three generations living in one home. I think there's something really unique about that. I think there's probably challenges within that as well. But the fact that, there was always this moment during the show where they were together as a family, sharing a meal, working together, facing the challenges of life together. Mom took them to church every week while Dad stayed home and either worked or didn't go to church. I'm not sure what Paul Walton did, but
Grandpa too.
just an idea of just a big family. So
that's a good one. I like that.
It is, and you couldn't have picked two more opposite families to highlight.
Right.
I know.
I like the idea of never growing old. So
That's good. All
how
right.
about you, Matt?
I am really struggling to find an answer to this question because I have definitely watched my fair share of TV and movies over the years. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I seem to find myself drawn more to the dysfunctional families. I don't know why or what that indicates. One that popped into my head as far as trying to come up with an answer was The Incredibles, being a superhero fan and just kind of that family dynamic of living everyday life and trying to be normal, especially in the first movie when they had to, hide their secret identities, and then, having this other life, that you live. But I've always wanted to be a superhero. For some reason or another, there's always been something that's attracted me. Oh gosh, that would be cool. I know, especially at times when I'm driving and I get very what's the word? Road rage. I wish I could fly so I could just bypass all that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great families. I hadn't really spent any time thinking about an answer for this question because just so many to choose from. But I appreciate all of your answers, and I do remember those shows, even though some of you think I'm still the young pup. I'm a lot older than
Since Matt Osborne isn't here, you're the
right. But
I think if Matt Osborne was here, and he might correct me next week or when we meet again, I know he's a big fan of the show Blue Bloods.
Oh.
And so, and that family, I can't remember the name of the family though.
Reagan.
That's right. But he when him and I have talked, he always again likes that idea that at some point during the show they're all together for a meal on Sunday, and I think there's great value in at some point coming together as a family, around the table.
All right. Well, hey, some good
That was
answers. Certainly dated ourselves a little bit, but
We're
good
ageless.
answers nonetheless. Well, and I also think it's a change of times too, in terms of like that family dynamic
Sure.
in TV and film. Like most of those that would, gather like the Waltons or the Partridges or the Bradys, but now it's more about single parent families or divorced families, or there isn't that dynamic where it's like getting together seems to be a huge
Right.
obstacle.
Right.
So well then, moving on with our discussion, what about I guess that was a good segue into this next question, but what exactly is your understanding of what family means and how it's changed over the years? I gave an example in terms of our fictional families that we just spent some time talking about, but I guess how much does that relate to our real families?
I think that has highlighted, the fictional families have highlighted that big change you talked about. There isn't the emphasis on being together anymore. And in real life, it's not there. Everybody is so busy specializing in activities, whether it be sports or music or debate, anything. If you have kids in the family, you're often going in 50 different directions, and that emphasis on a family meal is gone. Just like sports has totally disrupted Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings used to be sacred.
Right.
And then tournaments started creeping in, and then just regular games, and then just practice now is scheduled for Sunday morning, and Sunday is no longer sacred. So we're losing that family, that church family time on Sundays, and we just don't have that anymore. That's the family meal is what got us through those teen years with all 5 kids. Every other Sunday we were all together. Well, every other Friday too, but that was usually Little Caesar's Pizza, but at least we were all together. And one of our girls had a boyfriend through the last couple of years of her high school years that I referred to him as my every other Sunday son. And he truly was. I mean, he was part of the family because he was there every other Sunday. So we've really gotten away from those multi-generational or even one generation gatherings.
You talk about that. It just reminds me when we lived in Gladwin, and it was, my mom was working full time. She was out of state half the time. And so it was really Dad and I, and, my son when he wasn't working, and then my nephew and niece making dinner, and my sister was traveling with her job. So it was just like Dad and I like have we planned out a menu when we had it all planned out. Well, next thing you know is like one of them, they started bringing friends home to eat. And then it was like these friends started becoming regular, and conversations started. And it was like, really, it turned out to be this ministry that my dad and I never knew we created. But these kids considered us their family.
Yeah.
They came to us when, I became mom to these kids. So I was teaching in the elementary school at the time, and they were coming to me like after school, like, hey, can you help me with this or that? Or, they tell me about they passed a test and they got that. I'll see you at dinner, they would say. And it was just like, okay, and it was just, I mean, we were getting to the point where we had like 15 kids sitting at our dining room table. And thank goodness my mom and dad had this big table, but we gathered together like every day. And then when sports were always happening, my nephew was very involved in sports. Friday night was Mr. M's Pizza in Gladwin. We met up, you knew the corner, you knew that. And if you wanted to meet for dinner, and our kids came. I mean, and it was just, there was different kids throughout the time, and, and girlfriends would cry because it was mostly my nephew breaking up with these girls. They missed the family dinner. Can we still come back for family dinner? And it was just kind of like, absolutely. So we had kids at this table, and this subject really touches my heart because that's what family is. I mean, these kids, and we're still in contact with these kids, I'm Facebook friends with them, and they're telling, we're married, we got kids now. And it's just that's family. To me, that's what I would consider a family. Those that, you love, you trust, and you bring into your fold. Like that's your family.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic of family has certainly changed over the years, and I often think about, when I used to coach football or what, Vince Lombardi was, being a Packers fan, somebody that I read a lot about, and he would always tell his teams, if you can put God, family, and the Green Bay Packers in that order, everything will sort itself out, but I think over time, in my own opinion, it's almost reversed where it's everything else, family, and then God. And so I think family is something that's over time somehow taken a back burner to everything else in our lives. And it's not a priority, much like we experience in our churches, where going to church was a, pretty sacred thing that you did. And that isn't so much the case anymore either, because other things have taken priority. I remember when my wife and I first got married, her family would gather once a month for family birthdays, and her grandma would, make dinner for all of us and whatnot, and we would gather. But then, as time goes on, her grandparents passed away. And then it's like, as soon as like that matriarch and patriarch of the family pass, then all of a sudden family's not as important, or, oh, well, I'm busy, I can't get together. And family is kind of, I don't know, I can't think of a word, dilapidated. I don't know. Sorry, my vocabulary is limited. I'm not a wordsmith, but we get together with her immediate family, but as far as the extended family, I mean, that's a rare occasion now, unlike what it used to be. I mean, that gathering around the table that you've mentioned, it's not a priority, even though we're family and we claim we love and care for each other. Gathering together is just, if I got time. That's the change in family dynamic, that I feel has happened over time. So, Pastor Curtis, it looked like you had something you were going to say.
Yeah, I think y'all have made just awesome points, and to kind of piggyback on all of them, I think, when that blood family has those moments where we become separated, or just we're not, I've got two sisters who live in Michigan. One lives in Florida. The two who live in Michigan, I see them 4 or 5 times a year, maybe, only because of distance. I mean, it's, and that's a lame excuse, I know. But as much as I would love to see them once a month, sometimes it just doesn't, allow that. Obviously, the last 16 months has been really challenging. I found that early on in the pandemic, though, that we were connecting on Zoom once a week for about 6 months. Which was really cool. But, Matt, you made the great point that when those families kind of dilapidate or kind of fall apart, it gives us really cool opportunities, though, to kind of create that new family that Jackie, I think, was making that point about. When we first moved to Armada, we were, separated from family, from parents, and again, by distance. And so we had to work hard to kind of find a family there, create a family in that community that we could, foster and grow. And we have. And now that we're here, there are, there's a handful of people that they are our family, they're friends, but they're as close as family to us as they can be, because they've earned the trust. They show respect, and vice versa. There's love. There's all these things that are present. Just like you have with a blood relative. And so, I have no problem, referring to them as, they're a friend, but they're really are our family, because we walk through the same experiences that we do with family. We walk through grief, we walk through struggles, we celebrate joys together. We come together on holidays, and we do these things because there's this love, this connection that's present there at the heart of it all. So,
yeah. Well, let's take a look at some scripture to, take this conversation a little bit further. But if we look at the Gospel of Mark in chapter 3, Jesus is told, "Your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside asking for you." And he replied, who are my mother and my brothers? And looking at those who sat around him, he said, here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother. So taking this passage from Mark into consideration as part of our conversation, how does that form our definition of family?
I see it as he I think really kind of lays it out that whoever does the will of God is my family. I think he's trying to break down some barriers and some obstacles within that culture to say that, because again, we look at the culture at that time, that there was these hierarchical systems set in place of families. And as Jesus does throughout his whole ministry, he's trying to just kind of level the playing field for all who want to be a part of it. And so I think there were probably some who heard that and were incredibly offended, and some who just were overwhelmed with joy because now they feel like they're part of something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for right now, is just to be a part of something, to be welcomed. I think, often when in the church, when we hear that the people of the church describe the church as a family, I tend to cringe a little bit, because there's always such dysfunction in families, and there's, and I think it can become somewhat exclusive when we say family, because sometimes there's, to break into a family can be tough too.
Absolutely.
There's family language, there's family stories, there's family history that sometimes can be hard to kind of come into and know that. So it's one of those tricky things that I think we're still dealing with in the church today, of what does it mean even as a church to be family.
Right. And we see that as we're coming back together after this pandemic time of being out of our buildings, as we're coming back into the buildings, the ones that are rushing back in are the ones that have been there a long time. So how are we getting across that everybody is welcome, not just the ones that were in the building previous to the pandemic? So I don't know if I'm getting that across, but
yeah,
we've become more insular. We were apart from each other for so long, so now we're closing ranks, I feel like, and so we need to guard against that as well. And I think that's what Jesus was saying, is my family are those around me, and he knew, and I don't know, he didn't want to dismiss his well, at least through his mother, biological family, but his original family. But I think he wanted to emphasize that family is more than that. It's more than the family that you're born or adopted into.
Right.
I would agree with that. And I mean, all of you have shared stories about those that weren't biologically yours, that were family to you or are family to you, mm-hmm. And I've been that person who was a part of somebody else's family, and I always try to make those, that have, either my sons, whoever they're dating or whatever, make them feel that way as well. Regardless of knowing there's a chance this relationship might not last forever, but right. I'm still going to make them welcome and feel comfortable when they're with us. But, I've been on the other side of that, where I had friends that, I felt like I was a part of their family because they included me. And so, you've all shared those stories where you have this extended family. And I think, I don't think Jesus meant any disrespect to his biological family. It's just that it's expanding that definition of family and going beyond, in the fact that, we should treat everybody as if they're our family. Now, obviously there's all that dysfunctional and, that messy stuff that goes with a family or whatever that we have to certainly be cautious of and work through. But I think it's going along or maybe extending that idea of loving your neighbor, but including everybody to be a part of your family, as opposed to, well, here's a family, there's a family, there's a family. Yep.
Yeah. I wonder if he was trying to let the people know that he was going to love them just as much as he loved his own family.
Right.
And I think that, again, that's what people are looking for, is to not have to be labeled as, well, I'll love you only because you're my family. Well, no, I'm going to love you because you're human.
Right.
Well, and I mean, let's take into account that, Jesus was God in human form.
Right.
That, I mean, how could God not tell everybody that he loves them like family?
Right.
Right. Absolutely. But I think churches need to, a good reminder for churches is, especially those that are new to their community, new to the church, that treat them like a new in-law that's coming in, show them the history, involve them in the history, get to know that person, and not just say, you got to follow the rules because this is the way it always has been. I mean, get to know that person, get to know them and love on them and make them that, new relationship or the new relations of the family that's coming in. Because too many times it's like, yep, this is the way we always do it. So just fall in line and just follow the path that way. We're not involving, we're not getting to know the new person coming into our families. We're just making them assume and just follow the line in that. And I think we need to be more open on that. And I think on, all of our churches, we need to become more family oriented and not just, because when you go to a family's house, they don't make you sit on the front porch while they all sit around the dining room table. They invite you into the homes and they love on you and they want to get to know you. And I think that's as far as our churches and as far as our Christian relationships with our brothers and sisters, we need to be the same way, and we're not going to be alike.
I remember sitting at a lot of card tables growing up. So don't tell me about this front porch while they sit at the table thing,
Listen, I got the kids table for probably the last couple of years. I finally got adopted got to go to the adult table, but yes, I know the kid table very, very well. And I love the kid table. That's where my heart is most of the time.
Exactly. But I think sometimes in the church, we operate like the stereotypical mother-in-law who rules over all, and this is the way it is. This is my family, and that's my kid. I don't care if you're married to them or not. It's going to be done my way or the highway. And I see often not just the women of the church, but the men operating as a stereotypical mother-in-law.
Well, and I mean, when we do that, that keeps us from enjoying great things like a good potluck, right, Pastor Jackie?
Right.
Oh, yes, we can't forget those potlucks.
Feed them and they will come.
Well, then let's further this a little bit more. As we've been, talking about the definition of family, maybe looking a little bit more specifically at roles, but some more verbiage from the Bible. God is often referred to in Christianity as God the Father, at least in one aspect of the Trinity. But there's also scriptural references that describe God as mother, in the image of a divine parent for God, is the image of a divine parent for God helpful for you, or is it an obstacle? And what other images for God are meaningful to you? So I guess let's start with the first part of that 3-part question. Is the image of a divine parent for God helpful for you?
For me, yes, because I had loving parents growing up, but I know so many have not. So it's hard to get past that obstacle. If you had an abusive parent-child relationship, to think of God as a parent isn't helpful. For me, it's helpful. And I've moved more towards thinking of God as gender neutral over the years. And I don't know. I think but if I were to assign a gender to God, it would be more as a grandfather than a father, because grandparents aren't the disciplinarians usually. It's parents that are the disciplinarians. So I think of a loving grandparent who just spoils you and wants to give you everything, and still with boundaries. sometimes. But just I don't know, as a grandparent is how I would think of God.
Hmm.
I think for me, there's times when I want God to be that parent, that parental image, both mother and father. There's also times when I don't, where I want God to be that, that mighty fortress that, Martin Luther writes of. I want God to be protector. I want God to be that shield, that strength. That for me, not that I didn't find that in my parents, but it needs to be bigger than that. For me, I am like Pastor Kim, trying to and kind of moving more towards a gender neutral image of God, simply because we're all created in God's image. So for me, I can't say that God is a man, because that's not how it works.
Right.
Or that God is male. So, but again, I think there's different points in our life where we need to see God as whatever the situation might call for. But that's just my thoughts.
Bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
I like that, bigger than ourselves. But that's what, y'all made me think of the book of, whether it's the Shack, and
Right.
God is that woman, African American woman at that. Oh my gosh.
Right.
That really just rocked the world, and everybody was just like, "Can you believe that author wrote that?" And it's like, yes, how cool was that? I mean, God is God. God is bigger than what we could even imagine God to be, and I agree with both of what the two of you have said, and it's like, God is different every day. It's like, someday I need God as my protector. Someday I just need God just to hold me and get me through this day and carry me through those footsteps, and it's just kind of that. But there's days when, God, I need you to be my light. I need you to, show me the way. And it's just, I just think that's, I guess that's kind of answering all those kind of questions, really.
Well, that's the thing that I appreciate about, the Shack is God is whatever we need God to be.
Exactly.
And I guess, I also look at it in terms of like, well, who decided that God was a male?
Right.
That's the terminology that's used more frequently in the Bible, but who determined that?
Right.
Nobody actually has seen God. So how do he's like, hey, I'm a dude. So make sure you use dude language, when you write this.
I
think there's a lot of references early on that, like it was a cloud. God was a cloud that was following them around or whatever, like who decided that? But I mean, I think that's the beauty of it, because it wasn't acknowledged so much in years past, but now it's becoming more comfortable to acknowledge, like not having a good relationship with one parent or the other. And so God being able to be maybe that parent figure that was positive in their life.
Yep.
What's wrong with them referring to God as mother or father or grandparent? Because God is whatever we need God to be,
Right.
and I think that's the beauty of it. And it also allows us to expand that definition of not only these roles, but how we view family.
Right.
And as far as whether it's an obstacle or not, if anything, I think the obstacle might be ourselves in terms of getting in the way of what and who God can be for us in our lives. But
right.
Yeah. Because I think of myself as a parent, and I'm fallible. I don't, if I'm going to worship a God, I want to worship a God that is infallible, that is over and everything and omnipotent, and that fortress that Curtis spoke of, and not as a fallible human being. God is so much more than that. He's a cloud, or she's a cloud. It's a cloud.
So are there other images that you think of, or images of God that are meaningful to you?
Kind of answer that. I mean, some days it's a protector, some day God is, like I said, that light, that friend.
Yes.
Like, here I am, and here it is.
Right.
Some days God is the punching bag.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Praise God, like I said, just right there, just holding you as you're just saying, get me through this. Just get me through this. And
Morgan, God is Morgan Freeman in a white suit.
wouldn't that be cool?
Well, I mean, it is certainly intriguing, and that is, I guess, one of the things that I find beautiful about United Methodism is that freedom to think, like we've been discussing about this whole dynamic of the idea of family and the definition of it and the imagery of God, as opposed to, I guess, being a part of some denomination or religion that tells you like, no, this is it. God is a male, and family is, dad first, wife second, or mom second, and then kids, and everybody falls in line. Like, I appreciate the beauty of this conversation in terms of, we all have different ideas of family. And I think, I think it was Pastor Kim earlier had made mention of like intergenerational ministry being a part of this dynamic of family, because we're also a part of a generation now where, because of divorced and single parent households that there are those that are lacking some of those role models that some of us were fortunate enough to grow up with, in terms of having both maybe a mother and a father in our households, but somebody to teach them those things that vacancy leaves maybe in their house. And so what a great opportunity for us to extend our families and maybe, per se, take under our wing and be like, well, hey, obviously we know there's something missing in their life. Maybe we can be that for them, like God is for us, in whatever way that we need God.
Absolutely.
I think part of the challenge for me has always been too, when I hear people of the church talk about, traditional family values of the Bible, and I struggle with that, because I'm trying to find a family in the Bible that really wasn't kind of messed up. I mean, the first family we come across is Cain and Abel, and we know how that goes. Yes. Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
Abram and Sarai have a really unique family situation, because Abram has a child with the slave girl, and then the slave girl and the son are banished. And we see this. David and his family are no prize either, and so it's a struggle. I think I think there's obviously parts of scripture that we glean on to say how we should behave with each other, how we interact with each other.
Right.
As far as looking at a family from the Bible, it's a challenge to find a family that wasn't highly dysfunctional in scripture, and which I think gives all of us hope, because it just says, hey, God still used them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. There's no Waltons in the Bible, but
no Waltons. But there's probably like the Connor family from Roseanne in there.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that, but you're right. You're absolutely right on that. But just, yeah, good thought.
It is interesting what we see from what we read.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
We certainly form some ideas, but then if we look a little harder, sometimes, that's a great point, Pastor Curtis. I mean, all sorts of dysfunctional. I think a lot of them put the fun in dysfunctional when we look a little harder. Well, we're drawing towards the end of our time this week together, but any other final thoughts before we say goodbye to everyone this week?
I think for me, it's find that group of people who you connect with, who you love deeply, who are your family, whether they're blood or not.
Ditto.
I second to that. Yes, or third or fourth by the time I got on. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. I think this was a great discussion, and I hopeful I hope that this might lead you to engage in some conversations with your own families, and maybe take a little deeper look at not only your definition, but whether you're extending your family, maybe what the roles are in your family, or just maybe getting together, as a family, whether you discuss this topic any further or not. We hope for nothing but the best and nothing but love for each and everyone's family. And hopefully that is something that is still an option for you to embrace. But I know I'm thankful for this family here that I gather with each week as we continue to wrestle with these topics. And we are so glad that you joined us once again, and hopefully you'll come back for some more. But until we gather again, until next time, peace be with you.